Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Capital G here with quick update on our Extra Life campaign before we get into today's deck tech. So obviously November 2nd was our 24 hours of gaming. We raised $6,400 US. So great donation. If anyone who's contributed to either this campaign or to any campaign in their local area, you have my deepest appreciation. We do this for the kids every year, and it's one of those instances where we can see where the money is going and what it's doing, and I definitely appreciate this campaign. It's my third year participating, and I will be doing this again next year for certain. I myself almost doubled my personal goal of $100 US, got to 193. So I'm going to try and push towards that amount again next year. We are still collecting donations up until the end of 2019. So at any time, you can use the link that's going to be in the description, and you'll be able to donate to either to our campaign, which is in support of the BC Children's Hospital in British Columbia, Canada, or if you have a local player that is still collecting donations, please support them. Now, on to today's Commander deck tech. Atraxa, Praetors Voice, our most popular commander in our format. A green, a white, a blue, and a black gets us a 4/4 that flies. It has Vigilance, it has Death Touch, and it has Lifelink. But we're still not even at the reason why we play her. At the beginning of our end step, we get to proliferate. That means that any permanents on the board that have counters, any players at the table that have a counter of any sort, we can pick and choose which ones to add another counter to. So that is why we play Atraxa, the most popular commander in our format. And she's very open-ended. You can go for pure +1/+1 counter strategy. You can go with the Super Friend strategy and play with a bunch of Planeswalkers. You can go with -1 counters. You can go with charge counters. There's a large variety of things you can do with her. Very open-ended. One popular strategy that I am not using here is poison counters. Just have a way to give a poison counter to everyone and then proliferate them every turn. Not my cup of tea. I do plan on doing an infect deck of some sort in the near future. I had someone comment asking about how to make one, so gave him a couple of quick tips, but I will try to provide an actual infect deck within the next couple of weeks. I'm just kind of deciding which commander I want to use to run that and which colors. I'm pretty sure I know what colors I want actually, so we'll try to make that happen. I'll see if the tools are there for the idea that I have in mind, and if they are, then I will build that deck and post that for you. In the meantime, let us focus on Atraxa. I'm using a mixed strategy, primarily +1/+1 counters, or as I'll call them from here on out, 1/1 counters. Abzan Falconer. It's a payoff for having creatures with 1/1 counters on it, because each other creature we control with a 1/1 counter on it has flying. Bioessence Hydra. It's a 4/4 for 5 with trample. And when it enters the battlefield, it has a 1/1 counter on it for each loyalty counter on Planeswalkers we control. As you'll see later in the video, I am running 10 Planeswalkers. And whenever one or more loyalty counters are put on Planeswalkers I control, put that many 1/1 counters on the Bioessence Hydra. So it starts big and gets bigger, all on its own, and then Atraxa keeps proliferating and adding more. Bloodspore Thrinax. It's a 2/2 for 4 mana, Devour 1, which means to get a 1/1 counter on this guy, we'd have to sacrifice at least one creature. But then each other creature we control enters the battlefield with an additional X 1/1 counters on it, where X is the number of 1/1 counters already on the Bloodspore Thrinax. It's a very interesting creature, so interesting that even my cat Sushi wanted to get a closer look. Collective Effort, fun little sorcery here. gives us 3 modes. We can choose one mode for the 3 mana, but then we can tap creatures for the other 2 modes. The modes being destroy target creature of power 4 or greater, destroy target enchantment, or put a 1/1 counter on each creature target player controls. Drowned Ceratok is here. Another +1/+1 counter payoff. Each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it has trample. Crystalline Crawler, 4 mana for a 1/1, But when this enters the battlefield, it comes in with a 1/1 counter on it for each colored mana spent to cast it. We can also remove a 1/1 counter from the Crystalline Crawler to add 1 mana of any color. So this guy can actually ramp us. And we can tap him to put a 1/1 counter on the Crystalline Crawler. So even without any way of proliferating, we can add more counters to the Crystalline Crawler naturally. Cultivator of Blades. Fabricate 2. It's a 5 mana for a 1/1. Sounds bad on paper, but using the Fabricate, we have the option of either putting out 2 1/1 servo creatures or putting 2 +1/+1 counters on the Cultivator of Blades. We're going to want the counters on the Cultivator of Blades because whenever the Cultivator of Blades attacks, you can have each other attacking creature get +X/+X till the end of turn, where X is the Cultivator's power. Elite Scale Guard, an excellent payoff for +1/+1 counters. Enters the battlefield, we get to bolster 2, so whoever our least tough creature is, likely the Scale Guard himself, we'll get to throw 2 1/1 counters onto him. And whenever a creature we control with a 1/1 counter on it attacks, we get to tap a creature the defending player controls, and that's each attacking creature that can do that. So attack with 6 creatures, tap down your opponent's 6 blockers, win. Such is the plan. Elusive Crace. He doesn't care about blockers, he is unblockable. 3 mana for a 0/4 with Evolve, which means that anytime we play a creature that has more power or more toughness, he's automatically going to get a +1/+1 counter. Etched Oracle with the Sunburst mechanic. And the difference between Converge and Sunburst, by the way. Converge, if a permanent with Converge has a colored mana cost, it includes the colored mana cost in counting the colors used to cast it. For example, there is that creature that is blue, green, X, and comes in with X counters based on a number of colors. It would count the initial blue and green mana. Whereas Etched Oracle, the Sunburst mechanic, all the cards with Sunburst are colorless, so we don't have that possibility. Anyways, 4 mana for a 0/0. We try to put 4 different colors in because then it'll come in with 4 +1/+1 counters, and 4 is the magic number here. Because we can pay 1 and remove 4 +1/+1 counters from the Etched Oracle to have target player draw 3 cards. So it's a good card drawing engine, and especially if we're able to proliferate the 1/1 counters on the Etched Oracle, we might be able to get multiple activations out of him. Phantom Mage doesn't need to be activated, just needs to stick around. She is 4 mana for a 1/1 creature, has Evolve, so like the Elusive Crace. Anytime that we play a creature with more power or more toughness, she automatically gets a 1/1 counter placed onto her. And whenever a 1/1 counter is put onto the Phantom Mage, we get to draw a card. Give and Take, great little split card here. The give side, it's green and 2. Put 3 1/1 counters on target creature. The take side is to remove all 1/1 counters from a creature we control to draw that many cards. And it has Fuse. We can cast both sides of the cards in one go. Hangerback Walker is here. Pioneer All-Star. Double X gives us a 0/0 with X 1/1 counters on it, so you have to pay 10 mana for it to come in as a 5/5, for example, or 4 mana for it to come in as a 2/2. But whenever this dies, we get a 1/1 colorless stop their code token for each +1/+1 counter that was on him. In addition to proliferating, we can always pay 1 and tap the Hangerback Walker to put another 1/1 counter on him. Colonian Hydra, 5 mana for 0/0 with Trample. Doesn't sound great, but it comes into play with 4 +1/+1 counters on it. And whenever this attacks, we get to double the number of 1/1 counters on each creature we control. Speaking of putting counters on each creature we control, that's the Loyal Guardian. It's 4 mana for 5. Sorry, 5 mana for a 4/4 with Trample. At the beginning of combat on our turn, if we control our commander, we get to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature we control. Phantom Nantuko is here. 3 mana for 0/0 Trample. And when it enters the battlefield, it comes in with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Damage that would be dealt to the Phantom Nantuko is prevented, but every time it prevents damage to itself, we take away a +1/+1 counter. That's fine because we'll be putting more right back on it, not just through proliferating, but through tapping the Phantom Nantuko. An excellent defender in our deck. Rampaging Monument enters the battlefield with 3 1/1 counters on it, and whenever we cast a multicolored spell, it gets another 1/1 counter on it. Rayan, Last of the Abzan, is one of those multicolored spells. 0/0, but it comes into the battlefield with 3 1/1 counters on it. And whenever a creature we control dies or is put into the graveyard from the command zone, if it had 1 or more 1/1 counters on it, you may put that many 1/1 counters on target creature. Come on, Sushi. Come on. My cat is being very indecisive today. Put her outside, wants back in. Comes inside, wants to go back outside. Moving on, Scavenging Ooze. 2 mana for a 2/2. We can pay a green and exile cards from any graveyard. If the card that we exile is a creature card, this gets a +1/+1 counter and we gain a life. Sword of Truth and Justice, that's the only sword I'm running in this deck. Equipped creature gets +2/+2, has protection from white and from blue. And when the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, we get to put a +1/+1 counter on a creature we control and then proliferate. So, very appropriate sword for this deck. Great piece of equipment. Tuskguard Captain, another +1/+1 counter payoff, giving each creature we control for 1/1 counter on a Trample. Untamed Kavu, 2 mana for a 2/2 with Vigilance and Trample, but we are going to want to cast him with the Kicker, because then if he's kicked, it comes into the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it, so 2/2 for 2 or 5/5 for 5 with a couple of keywords. Good keywords. Great card. Verder's Gearhulk, 5 mana for an artifact creature construct. 4/4 with Trample, but then we get to distribute 4 +1/+1 counters among any number of creatures we control. So we could put 4 just on the Gearhulk, we could put 2 on the Gearhulk, 2 on something else, we can go 1/1/1/1, we can do whatever we like. Weapon Rack. This one coming in from Throne of Eldraine comes into the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. It's not a creature, but we can tap the Weapon Rack to move those counters onto another creature. Woodland Wanderer. 4 mana for a 2/2. This has Converge though, so this can come in with up to 4 +1/+1 counters just by casting it with mana of different colors. Also Vigilance and Trample, which means it gets to attack, it gets to run over our opponent's creatures, and it gets to stay back and block. And Zymic Guildmage. Great little payoff here. This turn, each creature enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it, or we could pay 2 mana and remove a counter from a creature we control to draw a card. That is our +1/+1 counter synergies. Let's go to -1s. Running Serrated Arrows. Comes into play with 3 arrowhead counters on it. We have to sacrifice the Serrated Arrows if we run out of arrowheads. Thanks to the proliferation, we shouldn't run out. And we can tap and remove an arrowhead counter from the Serrated Arrows, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. Usually going to target our opponent's creatures, although there is going to be one exception, and that is the Wickerburrow Elder. It's a 4 mana 4/4. Comes into play for -1/-1 counter on it, but we can pay green and remove the -1/-1 counter from the Elder to destroy an artifact or enchantment. So yes, onboard repeatable artifact and enchantment destruction. And our last -1 card is Volrath the Shapestealer, coming in from Commander 2020. At the beginning of combat on our turn, we get to put a -1/-1 counter on a creature. And we can pay 1 and copy that creature until the end of the turn, except, of course, it's still a 7/5. Moving on to charge counters, I'm playing a few cards that run charge counters. Most of these help produce mana, but they may have other effects as well, so let's look at Astral Cornucopia and Everflowing Chalice. The Cornucopia is cost XXX, which means it's 3 mana to have it come in with 1 charge counter, 6 mana for 2, 9 mana for 3, so on and so forth. Everflowing Chalice has a better rate, 2 mana for the first counter, 4 mana for the second, 6 for the third. But the difference being that the Everflowing Chalice taps for colorless mana, whereas the Astral Cornucopia will tap for whatever mana, color of mana that we choose. Mace of the Valiant, every time a creature comes into play, it gets a charge counter. Then you can proliferate those charge counters, and then the equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each charge counter on the Mace of the Valiant, and has Vigilance. Fun little piece of equipment, I would think. Pentad Prism, a great mana rock for this deck. Has Sunburst, so we want to put in the 2 different colors of mana in order to cast it. But when we do, we can freely remove these charge counters in order to add mana. Sphere of the Suns, it's 2 mana, comes in tapped with 3 charge counters on it, but then we can remove a charge counter from Sphere of the Suns to add 1 mana of any color to our mana pool. So, great little mana rock here. There's the Sushmoosh, as we call him, Sushi. Transmogrifying Wand is an interesting use of charge counters. It's onboard repeatable creature removal. Albeit we can only use the card at sorcery speed, so it does slow that down a little bit. But what's nice here is that it comes in with 3 charge counters. So even if we're not able to proliferate right away, that's fine. It's slow enough that we'll never really run out of counters on him. It's 1 tap and remove a counter to destroy a creature, and they get a 2/4 Ox in its place. Over to Planeswalkers, I'm running 10, and here are our first 8. Anshi the Greathearted, to give all creatures we control Vigilance. Gives us a little bit of life gain. And the minus ability lets us put 1/1 counters and loyalty counters on each of our creatures and Planeswalkers. Ashiok, Dreamrender. Preventing our opponents from searching their libraries using various spells or abilities. So, spells and abilities our opponents control cannot cause them to search their library. We can also have target player put the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard, then exile each opponent's graveyard, so excellent graveyard control card. Dovin Bani's here. Until our next turn, up to 1 target creature gets -3/0, and can't use their activated abilities. So it could slow down our opponents a little bit, but it's really this -1 that he's here for, the gaining 2 life and drawing a card. That's what he's here for. Kasmina is here also. Spells and opponents that target a creature or planeswalker we control cost 2 more to cast. So not only does it make it harder for people to target us, but it also gives us 2/2 creature tokens, and also lets us draw and discard cards. So Kasmina, an excellent entry here. Kiora, Behemoth Beckoner is here. Love that -1 to untap target permanent, and also love the fact that whenever a creature of power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under our control, we get to draw a card. That's not her only iteration, as the Crashing Wave is also here, mostly for the -1 of drawing a card and playing additional lands. Although that +1 until your next turn prevent all damage that would be dealt to and dealt by target permanent and opponent controls. That may prove relevant if someone decides to, say, drop a Blightsteel. Obnixilus Reignited, also great creature removal and card draw, so you have a lot of utility with Obnixilus Reunited. I am running Oko, but not the one people would expect. Oko the Trickster, the Planeswalker deck Oko. The +1 gives us 2 +1/+1 counters on up to 1 target creature we control, or he can become a copy of a creature we control, with all damage dealt to him being prevented. And the -7. Until end of turn, each creature you control has base power and toughness 10/10 and gains trample, so could very quickly build into a finisher. That is why we run Oko the Trickster. Lastly, for Planeswalkers, 2 forms of Vraska. We have Vraska the Unseen, who can destroy any non-land permanent. And she defends herself pretty well with that +1 ability, making so that anyone who tries to attack her and knock her off the board will have to lose whatever creatures they use. And Vraska Swarm's Eminence is here. This is a little spicy, actually. Whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals damage to a player or planeswalker, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. Okay. Atraxa has Death Touch. And of course, so do the counters that are made, the assassin token creatures that are made by Vraska. So, yeah, good ad. 3 cards that use other types of counters. Meosion of Night's Reach. This is perhaps the nastiest card in the deck. It comes into play for Divinity counter, which makes him indestructible as long as he has that Divinity counter. But we can remove that Divinity counter at any time to force each of our opponents to discard their hand. What makes this really nasty is if we already have Atraxa in play when we drop the Meosion, that means that we can force our opponents to discard their cards and still have Divinity counters. So the plan is Atraxa on the field, cast Meosion, proliferate the Divinity counter, then remove the counter and force all opponents to discard. So he's still a 5/2 indestructible. Still has a Divinity counter that we can use again if need be. And our opponents are playing the top deck game for the rest of the night. Simic Ascendancy for the alternate win. We're running a lot of +1/+1 counters, so why not run the Simic Ascendancy? Every time a creature gets +1/+1 counter, this gets a growth counter. And once this thing hits 20 growth counters, if we start beginner upkeep with this thing having 20 growth counters, we win the game. And Tome of Legends, our last sort of card about counters, enters the battlefield with a page counter on it. And whenever our commander either enters the battlefield or attacks, it gets another one, so it's easy to replace the page counter on it. And it's 1 tap and remove a page counter from the Tome of Legends to draw a card. Excellent. Other cards that matter, Arcane Signet and Commander Sphere tap for our colors, so both are easy includes here. Damnation. Destroy all creatures that can't be regenerated. Always good to have this reset button. Deep Glow Skate, of course, a very popular card in our format. When it enters the battlefield, double the number of each kind of counter on any number of target permanents. So, excellent card here. Evolution Sage. War of the Spark gave us a lot of goodies. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under our control, proliferate, so play the Sage, play the land, make everything more buff. Felwar Stone, of course. Gives us more mana. Languish. This is essentially a one-sided wipe. The idea here is that because our creatures will be way bigger than 4/4s by the time we cast this thing, we get to knock out at least half of our opponent's boards. Skyship Plunderer, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we choose a permanent, and for each type of counter on that permanent, we add another. Sol Ring, of course, because Sol Ring, Sylvan Reclamation, exiles up to 2 artifacts and or enchantments, and it also has the basic land cycling, which is also handy. Tezzeret's Gambit for a little bit of card draw and a little bit more prolification. Thrumming Bird, whenever this deals combat damage to a player, we get to proliferate. And Winding Constrictor. If one or more counters will be placed on an artifact or creature we control, add 1. And if I would get 1 or more counters, then I would get another 1. Alright, just a couple of lands that have counters. The big one is Gemstone Mine. This is an awesome card in this deck. Comes into play with 3 mining counters on it. You can tap it and remove a mining counter for 1 mana of any color. We would normally have to sacrifice it once we get to 0 counters on it, but we're running Atraxa. We will never get to 0 counters on Gemstone Mine. Mage Ring Network is a little bit more work, but this will give us a pretty huge source of colorless mana over the course of the game. We have to at least pay 1 and tap it to get the first counter going, but once it is going and up and running and we get 4, 5, 6 storage counters on the Mage Ring Network, we'll be able to start spending them for extra colorless mana. I'm also running all 4 Vivid lands. Yes, they come into play tapped, but playing Atraxa, these are all lands that tap for any color mana we could ever want. For my other lands, I've got a Command Tower, running the full suite of Evolving Wilds, Fabled Power, and Terramorphic Expanse. 6 forests, as well as 5 islands, plains, and swamps. Also running the Opulent Palace, Seaside Citadel, Sandstip Citadel, and Arcane Sanctum, so all of the tri-lands. Ash Barrens is also here for the basic land cycling. Command Tower because Command Tower. And of course, the Guild Mage's Forum and the Opal Palace. For Guild Mage's Forum, we can filter a color into it. So pay 1, tap it to add 1 mana of any color, and if it's spent on a multicolored creature spell, it comes in with an additional +1/+1 counter. Opal Palace does the same thing, but only for our commander. And that is my Atraxa build. Obviously a very, very casual build, not a super competitive deck. Competitive is not really my forte. A few suggestions. Obviously, the mana base can be improved if you happen to have your shocks. So if you've got your shocks, play your shocks. Exotic Orchard, also an excellent add. And Karn's Bastion, probably the only specific card that would be really, really good here. Being able to pay 4, tap and tap a land to proliferate. Temple of the False God was also suggested here. I see why. Not a bad choice. Going over to other spells here. Merciless Eviction is a great wipe, and definitely much more budget-friendly choice for those that can't really get Damnation. Inexorable Tide, turning all of our spells into proliferate spells. Hardened Scales, of course. I only have the 1 copy, and it's in Halar right now, so can't play that here. Inspiring Call. I tried to keep this in this deck, but I found that I've run out of room. What's good here is that we get to draw a card for each creature we control for 1/1 counter on it, and then make all those creatures indestructible. Chromatic Lantern also here is an excellent mana rock. Cathar's Crusade, a great way to add 1/1 counters ad nauseum. Both Putrefy and Mortify for the flexible instant speed removal. Contagion Engine is here as a great way to flood our opponent's boards with -1/-1 counters. And being able to pay 4, tap, and proliferate twice. Don't have one of these, so that's why it's not in my build. And Tamio Field Researcher, I don't have her either. Probably suggested here for the -2. Although that -7, it is pretty easy to reach our ultimate when we're proliferating, so it may very well be for the -7 that is suggested here. And for creatures, such as the one that's meowing behind me, we have the Master Biomancer. Each creature we control enters the battlefield with a number of 1/1 counters equal to the Master Biomancer's power, so it's a great way to have our creatures ETB with 1/1 counters. I found I did not have room for him, so I did not play him. Corpse Jack Menace. If 1 counters would be placed, 1/1 counters would be placed on a creature we control, we put twice that many instead. Forgotten Agent. Anytime somebody plays a spell, it gets a +1/+1 counter, and we can distribute those 1/1 counters amongst our creatures on our upkeep. Pier and Toofy. This is me not playing them because I don't have them, but these are excellent cards for Atraxa, no doubt. Varel of the Hullclade. I find I spend all my mana already, so even though the cost for doubling counters on or adding counters using that tap ability on Varel is cheap, I find I use my mana up already, so I can't really squeeze it in. Flex Channeler, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, proliferates. So another way to have a creature that just proliferates faster. Excellent addition, and only at uncommon, so pretty affordable. Gave, Combolicious Gave. He's probably better off as a commander than in the 99, honestly. So, but obviously a valid choice. And Shalai, give my board hexproof, and a way to give my entire board a +1/+1 counter. Yeah, she would be a great choice if I had a copy. The only creature I'm surprised isn't here is Soul Diviner. Again, someone I didn't quite have room for in my deck, but Soul Diviner lets me tap and remove a counter from an artifact, creature, or land in order to draw cards. So, I'm surprised that's not here. Nonetheless, all good suggestions. If you want to build this exact build, again, it's a more casual take on the build. They give me a price of $230. Much of the price is from Atraxa herself, closing in on $30 now. A few of the optional cards, like Hangerback Walker, Colonial Hydra. Obviously, you don't need to play these if you have a different strategy in mind, so you can find some savings here. Sword of Truth and Justice. I thought it was a great ad, but I can see why it's a bit more expensive. And where else we can find significant savings? Arcane Signet, of course, is still commanding a high price. Hopefully, the Commander Draft product next year will take care of this problem. Damnation is the big card here at $32. You can play other cards such as Merciless Eviction. You can play Wrath of God. There's a huge choice of board wipes that you can play in place of Damnation. Deep Glow's Gate, again, this only ever came out in the pre-con, so that's why it commands this price. It's the only thing that does what it does. And the Gemstone Mine, I would encourage splurging for one of these if you can get it. Because this is a card that is, it's essentially a second command tower in this deck, so I guess that price is high just because there aren't very many of them floating around. And Fabled Passage, because it's the only fetch land in Frontier, so we have two very, very popular. We have a very, very popular format in Frontier and Standard, and an up and down format in Standard that both want this card. So that's why this commands this price. All right. So that, of course, is Atraxa. That, of course, was my cat Sushi. And this is the end of our video. I'd like to thank you all for watching today's video and being patient with me as I deal with a very, very restless kitten. And I will talk to you all again next time. Bye for now.